In today's video, I'm going to tell you a story of how I recovered a prepper's stolen firearms, an action that resulted in me being involved in an armed standoff with the thieves. And we're also going to look at the lessons that we can all learn from this incident so that it doesn't happen to you. Right after the channel intro. Welcome to this community. I'm an avid prepper and oath keeper, and I'm certified to teach firearms and the use of deadly force. If you want to learn actual prepping skills and how to protect yourself legally, then please subscribe and also click the bell icon so you won't miss whenever a video is released. So this last Father's Day, I actually had to work, and around 8 o'clock in the morning, I got dispatched on the report of a burglary where firearms were stolen. And so when I arrived to the house, the homeowner then tells me that numerous firearms were stolen, including an AR-15, several handguns, and also numerous magazines and several thousand rounds of ammunition. All were stolen in this burglary. And to quote the homeowner, he said that enough firearms and ammunition was stolen that the burglars could now hold off a small army. And then he goes on to tell me how the night before he went to work the overnight shift, but how the night before that he had loaned his car to his just ex-girlfriend so she could move her stuff out of his house, and that his car keys also contained his house key. And then he went on to tell me that when he returned home from work that morning, that he found the car to still be missing, his home to be locked up, but his firearms and ammunition stolen. Now he knew that it was his ex-girlfriend who stole the guns because whoever had gotten into his house and stole the guns had used his house key to make entry, and she was the only one that had a key to his house that night before. So then I get from him a description of the car that she's supposed to be in, her name. I try to get her address from him, but he can only give me a general description of the area that she was moving to, which ended up being about 10 miles outside of my area of responsibility. So at that point, I then notified the law enforcement agency in that area, and I give them the girl's name and the description of the car that she's supposed to be driving. And again, I'm only able to tell them the general area that she might be, which is in a trailer somewhere around a lake in this general area. So basically I gave that law enforcement agency a BOLO, a be on lookout, in hopes that they can find her and detain her for me so I can question her about these missing and stolen firearms. Now, as I was talking to this guy inside of his house, because inside of his house was a crime scene, but as I was talking to him, I could see a lot of prepper related gear. Now, I don't want to get into what I did and did not see, but it was all tactical gear and zombie related stuff. And nothing told me that this guy was trying to put back anything like food, and he didn't even have a garden to tell me that he was at least trying to learn how to be sustainable with his food. Now, I did not mention to him that I was a prepper, and I also did not mention to him that it was pretty obvious that he was a prepper, because I was there to investigate his guns and ammunition getting stolen and not for chit chat. But while I was at the scene talking to him, he told me that he regretted giving his keys to his ex-girlfriend because he knew that she had hardcore drug problems. And about this time, the other law enforcement agency contacted me and advised me that they had found his ex-girlfriend and her car, and that she was in this little small camping trailer that was in the middle of the woods next to this little lake, exactly as the victim had described. And I really have to give kudos to the other police department that found the female and her car, because when I got there, that camping trailer and where this girl was located at truly was in the middle of nowhere. Anyways, by the time that I got there, the police officers already on the scene already had the female outside of the trailer. They already had her detained, but she was refusing to talk to us, and she was also refusing to let us search the trailer for the stolen guns and ammunition. And so here is where it starts getting a little bit dangerous for us. While we were there, we saw a couple of guys peer out of one of the side windows, and they refused to come out. When we asked them to come out, and they just retreated back into the camper and just holed themselves up inside of there. And so here is where we start getting a little bit concerned, because we are at this trailer that's in the middle of the woods. It has two unknown guys inside of it, and we highly suspect that this trailer contains a stolen AR-15, several other firearms, or as to put the way the victim put it to us, enough firearms and ammunition to hold off a small army. And again, we're at this trailer that's just in the middle of nowhere. And so with these guys refusing to come out of this trailer that possibly contained a small arsenal, we did what anybody with half a brain on their shoulders would do. We went ahead and took up tactical positions around this trailer. And now a standoff was beginning. Us police officers with our rifles out and surrounding this trailer, and with these unknown suspects inside of the trailer refusing to come out and believed to be in possession of a stolen AR-15 and thousands of rounds of ammunition and multiple other firearms. Now, unbeknownst to us, one of the suspects had been texting his mother while they were inside of the trailer and us having it surrounded. And so she ended up showing up to the scene, and we did get her to make phone contact with them inside and talk them into coming out peacefully. And so eventually 2 drugged out, scraggly looking guys did eventually come out of that trailer, where we took them into custody, and then we took them back to the local police department there, where we interviewed them, and then I secured a search warrant for that trailer. Now, to make a long story short, during these interviews, some of the suspects refused to talk. Some of them went ahead and admitted that they had went there to the house with the intention to get those firearms. She let them in, and then they all carried the firearms out. And then after they got the firearms, then they went to a drug dealer's house in the nearest big city, where they traded at least one of the guns for heroin. So anyways, once I got the search warrant secured and signed off on, I then returned back to that trailer, and I did recover the stolen AR-15, not thousands of rounds of ammunition, but hundreds of rounds of ammunition, multiple other firearms. And obviously I did not recover the one firearm that they had traded for heroin in the nearest big city. And since we're on the topic of drugs, during that search warrant I also found heroin and meth and needles inside of that trailer. So I ended up arresting all 3 of them for burglary and multiple counts of thefts of firearms, and also multiple counts of narcotics. So now let's quickly talk about the lessons that we as preppers can learn from this. First off, this guy should not have been dating a drug addict. He knew she had problems with hard drugs, but yet he chose to still be romantically involved with her. I mean, let's look past the fact that most drug addicts steal from almost everybody that they know. But let's also consider all the diseases that this guy is exposing himself being romantically involved with a drug addict, like HIV and hepatitis and all the other diseases that come with intravenous drug use. But this is something that I see time and time and time again. When people get addicted to hard drugs like crystal meth or meth and heroin, they start stealing from even their closest family members. And that's why so many drug addicts end up homeless. Drug addicts will usually lose their jobs due to their drug addiction, and then they end up moving in with family members, and then once their family members get tired of them stealing from them, then the family members kick them out onto the street. And then I see it time and time again also, where then the adult child of these parents will then swear up and down to their parents that they're clean and that they're off their drugs and that they've got a new job at a local fast food restaurant or wherever, and that they need to move back in with the parents until they can get themselves back on their own feet. And then the family believes their adult child and lets them move back in, only to find all of their stuff stolen and their child missing, who's actually on a several-day drug binge once they bought all the drugs from the stuff that they stole from their family. And folks, if you have a drug addicted child, don't even let them borrow your car. Again and again, I've seen this happen where parents will loan their adult child that's addicted to drugs, to let them use their car for their evening, only for that adult child to get pulled over and stopped and arrested while driving the parent's car. And then the parents end up having to pay a hefty tow bill to get their own car out of impound. Also, whether this victim of this burglary that this video is about, whether his girlfriend was addicted to drugs or not, he should have kept his firearms locked up. If you have firearms, you really need to keep them secured. Preferably in locked safes, and maybe your handgun in a quick access safe next to your bed. And this guy that had his gun stolen,
he did not have any of his serial numbers written down or cataloged or anything. When his ex stole all of his guns, he really had to dig and find old receipts and everything like that to provide me with the serial numbers for his guns. One of the things I had to explain to this guy is that there are millions of AR-15 rifles out there in this country, and that serial number is that unique number for his gun. It's that serial number will prove that that recovered AR-15 actually was his AR-15 and not somebody else's. So if your guns get stolen, and if you want any hope of your firearms being recovered down the road, you want to be able to tell the police that respond to your theft, you want to be able to advise them of the serial numbers of your stolen guns. That way those cops can enter your stolen guns into the stolen database, and then if your guns are found later on down the road, whatever cop finds that gun can run the serial number and get that NCIC hit that will tell that cop that that gun is stolen and that that gun rightfully belongs to you. And the other lesson for this video is something that I've already griped about many times over and over again. I personally think that people that have only guns and tactical gear are not true preppers. This is especially true if you have the means to do more than just collect guns and tactical gear. Folks, you serious preppers know that a gun will only get you so far after SHTF. Wild animals will probably be hunted up very quickly after people start getting hungry, and if your plan is to be a marauder, then you're probably only going to be able to survive so many firefights before a bullet does find you. Firefights aren't like what you see on television. And during SHTF, it won't even take a direct hit by a bullet to one of your vital organs to kill you. Even simple bullet wounds will be debilitating and can turn into deadly infections without the proper medical care. But if you consider yourself to be a serious prepper, you should also be stocking up on food or whatever else that your budget and your space will allow you. Folks, I know that some of you live on fixed incomes and also in apartments, so you just don't have the money or the space to be going out and stockpiling a year's worth of food at your residence. But I hope that you have at least some canned foods and other items put back for what your budget and your space allows you to. And then if you own land, I really hope that you're practicing gardening and not just hoarding seeds. Because like I've said many times before, gardening has a little bit of a learning curve to it. And you'll want a way to produce more food after SHTF because eventually your stockpile food will run out. And real quick before we move to the next lesson, please take the poll that should be appearing in the upper right hand corner of the screen just about now, and let me know if me wearing this mask in my videos bothers you or not. Now while we had this rundown camper surrounded in the middle of this woods, while this was going on, I have to admit, I really admired how good of a bug out location this actually would have been. It was in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by woods, and it was right next to a little lake. But with having been given a general location of where the suspect was going to be in her camper, was going to be at, and with a gravel road leading to it, we were able to find that the camper and the suspect pretty quickly. So that's just a good lesson for us preppers to take heed to. If other people outside of that bug out location may know where we're at, and then a road could actually, and then the combination of a road could actually lead people straight to your doorstep. And this next lesson is a lesson that I constantly have to remind myself also, because I am one of those people that I am always jumping on the bandwagon that the countryside is always more safe than the city. But we have to remember that there are plenty of drug addicts in the countryside too. There's been plenty of meth labs that's been found in old barns in the country, and also in little small camping trailers like the one that I ended up serving a search warrant on. But these drug addicts in the country are a real concern, and even will be still a concern after SHTF, because these are the type of people that will turn into prowlers in the night, looking to steal stuff so that they can sell for drugs, or looking to see if you have any medications that they can steal from you. So if you walk in on a drug addict that's trying to steal from you, trying to burglarize your house, or trying to steal from your bug out location, that drug addict has to make a split-second decision. If he gets caught, if he goes to jail, he might not get his next fix. So you, in essence, might be standing in the way of that drug addict and his next fix. Now, this drug addict may just decide to make a run for it if you catch him in the act. Or he might also decide that he's got to hurt you so he keeps from getting caught. And this could be especially dangerous if you are out in the middle of nowhere where there's no other witnesses that drug dealer knows would be able to identify him as being the person that hurt or killed you. And here's the next big lesson that I've not even figured it out yet. But while I was serving that search warrant on that little camping trailer and I was recovering that prepper's stolen guns, the heat inside of that little camper was stifling. I mean, there was times I actually felt dizzy while I was getting dizzy from the heat while I was doing that search warrant. It was small, it was enclosed, there just really was no airflow through there. And I'm not even going to try to act like I'm some kind of a super macho man here that can adapt and overcome everything, that I will be able to adapt and overcome anything during SHTF. I will 100% admit that the older that I get, that the more that heat affects me. When it starts getting into the 90s and close to 100 degrees Fahrenheit, it just totally sucks the energy right out of me. So this is just something for us to remember about, that when SHTF happens and we don't have air conditioning that we're so used to, and during the dog days of summer when the heat is very high, very extreme, and the humidity is up, how much is this going to affect your sleep when you really need it, when you're going to be possibly toiling all the next day in the fields or your gardens or what have you? Now, many people will say, hey, you will just become accustomed to the heat. But the point that I'm bringing this up is, in a lot of areas across the United States, you have the winter time, springtime, summer, and then the fall. So every year after the cold season leaves, then you're gonna have to grow reaccustomed to that heat. And I think that we need to prepare ourselves that we will be probably in for some pretty miserable, sleepless nights during the height of the dog days of summer, when it just gets extremely hot and humid outside. So why don't you do me a favor? Why don't you comment below with what your actual plans are for dealing or battling the extreme summer heat during SHTF. And then also please comment below with any other lessons that you think can be learned from this incident that this video was about. This way we can all learn from each other. And if you would like to learn how to make your own syrup off grid, then click on the link that should be appearing in the upper right hand corner of the screen just about now, because you can use this homemade syrup as a morale booster or even something to even barter with after SHTF. And every prepper should know how to work with a team member if and when you're capturing a suspicious person near your bug out location after SHTF. So to see a video that shows an easy exercise that you can practice with your prepping partners and or your spouse, then click on the video that's on the right side of the screen now to expand your skill set to help you survive after SHTF. Anyways folks, if you made it this far, hey, thank you very much for watching, and I pray that you have a good night.